The main reason a lot of people do not pass the 3-part CWI exam on the first try is because they do not have a study plan. I'm going to give you tips that I learned back in 2008 to pass the CWI test, and this also works for API or NACE. I also use this for passing my senior CWI. Also, I'm going to talk about what else do CWIs inspect besides welds, and how do inspectors know when to inspect what code or standard or other acceptance criteria to use and how to document it. Follow to the end for a bonus tip on the most valuable dual certifications. Let's get started by looking at some items CWIs inspect other than welds and some work locations. This study method to pass the CWI test has worked for me and many of my coworkers, and I hope it works for you. It takes dedication and hard work, but you get out of it what you put into it. So first, depending on your level of industry knowledge, schedule a CWI preparatory class. They usually come in 7-day, 10-day, 14, or maybe even longer. Ensure the preparatory class is an approved proctor with the AWS so they can administer the test after the prep class. They will have a special code and date to put on your CWI application. Pick a class that's about 6 months out into the future. I used Real Educational in 2008 and I was very satisfied. I'm not paid by them, I'm just a satisfied customer. Next, complete your application with the AWS. It may take 4 to 8 weeks to get approval, but call AWS and find out how long the approval process takes. Number 3. Get all the test subject books written in the CWI body of knowledge, and this is what the test will be based upon. And number 4, the preparatory class will send you study material before the class, and it may be electronic or it could be in a hard copy. So those are the high-level categories before the study. So let's do a quick overview of the test itself. So the CWI exam is in 3 parts. Part B is given directly after your CWI preparatory class, and it's a written book of welding specifications for welding inspection on plastic welds. You need to do serious study on this specification, know it inside and out. Most people don't open it until the day of the test and get confused between the pipe and the structural specifications. Once you pass this test, you are approved to take parts A and C. And also during the prep class, ask the prep class instructor any questions or clarifications from your studies, and keep studying to maintain your perishable knowledge until you receive permission to take the other 2 tests. Now you received your AWS approval to take parts A and C. Part A, this is a computer-based training test at Prometrics and is the general knowledge test. It's closed book and it's all about your studying and your knowledge retention. Part C, this is another computer-based training test at Prometrics, and it tests your knowledge on your selected code book, and it'll be open book, and most people that I know take API 1104. There are a few other code books that you can choose from, but that's up to you. And because of the short time, you basically need to know this code book word for word. Now let's study the study plan. All 3 of these tests require strong memory recall. And I found the best tool to exercise the mind muscle is the simple flashcard. $1 will get you about 100 of these flashcards. Also, keep these flashcards organized into Part A, Part B, and Part C for your test. All right. So here's an example of some of the flashcards that I've made up for a couple of my API tests. Okay. And what you're going to do is very low tech. Is every paragraph of every book you're going to make up a question, and you're going to put it on the front. You're going to cite the reference here in the bottom corner in case you have questions, and then you're going to put the answer to that question you made up on the back. And you can take these cards anywhere with you. So if you got some free time, you can pull out some of your cards and just go over them while you're studying. All right. And for the CWI, you're going to need about 6 packs or about 600 cards. Also, ask other CWIs for study material that they use for their tests. Again, make more flashcards from that study material. And continue to read over your Part B specification for your test, as well as your Part C code book when you're not using the flashcards. This will keep you familiar with the information location within these documents. Have you heard the rule of 100 hours? It states if you study 100 hours a year, which is 18 minutes a day, you'll be 95% more proficient than any other novice in the field after a year. Yet we don't want to wait a year because we have this thing called life going on, and we don't have a year to wait to be proficient. So we're going to rip the Band-Aid off, and we're going to study 30 hours a week for 3 months. That's 360 hours total study. Now, you can study 4 hours a day after work, or maybe all weekend for the next 3 months, and also walk around with flashcards in your pocket in case you have some free time at work or during lunch. Now, after 3 months of studying a minimum of 30 hours a week, you'll near the peak of the bell curve in learning. Then finish it off with your CWI preparatory course. In 3 months, personally, I'm at 100% saturation, answering all 600 flashcards 100% of the time. This information saturation, however, is perishable, and if I don't keep up studying, I'll start to forget some of these more minute details that tests like to ask. When I use this method, I usually score between 80 and 87% on my overall test. And this same information was reported by my other co-workers who use the same method. Now, I'm using the return on investment with my time. I study enough to pass, and I don't need 100%. Your CWI card will not show percentage you made on the test. It's strictly a pass or fail. Also, during the test, be sure to take a wristwatch with you because usually there's no clock on the wall or no cell phones are allowed. And I took a preparatory class for my CWI and API 570 in 2008 and using the same flashcard method, and I passed the first time. However, I did self-study only with flashcards and no preparatory class, and I did pass my senior CWI, API 510, API 653, API 1169, and API Source Inspector Fixed Equipment. So now once you pass your CWI test, you've met the minimum requirements to be a certified welding inspector. Now comes on-the-job training of what a CWI really does. So also, unless you're working full-time at a fabrication shop, there usually is not enough welding to keep a CWI busy. And on small to medium projects, there may be only 1 or 2 project inspectors. If there's welding, a CWI is usually required by contract. They must cover the quality inspections for the other crafts if there's not a craft inspector specific for that craft. Know what inspections to complete, at what time, and how to document them. Well, all documentation required by an inspector is on the inspection test plan, also known as an ITP, and it's required at project closeout. Any missing QC forms can cause a reinspection or even cause rework. So let's take a quick look at an ITP. So here we have a sample ITP, and the main attributes of the ITP are the inspection points, what inspections need to be completed. Next is the acceptance criteria for those inspections. Followed by that, who's involved in the inspections. Sometimes it's not just the weld inspector, it may be the client or maybe the contractor craft. Finally, how is the inspection recorded? What is the objective evidence that the inspection was completed? And these forms are all going to be required at project closeout. And then finally is your comments section. And typically this will provide additional information such as how often these inspections are required. Okay, so don't be the CWI who says, I only want to look at welds, because you'll no doubt be the first on the layoff list. And also, you'll get paid more when you do more and when you get more experience. So take every opportunity to do additional inspections. And as a member of the quality department, you'll be required to complete numerous QC ITP inspections to include bolt torquing inspections, material receiving, fabrication dimension inspections, perhaps field coating weld inspections, holiday test inspections, hydrostatic test inspections, material storage inspections, preventative maintenance, perhaps even structural steel inspections. Time for your bonus quality tip. Having been a quality control manager, quality assurance manager, and client representative on multi-billion-dollar projects, I can say the most valuable dual certified inspector to the project is the CWI, who is also a NACE Level 2 coatings inspector. Now the welders, they're brought in fast at the beginning and increase in numbers to the middle of the project, while the coaters are slow at the beginning and more at the middle and the end of the project. Since project leadership are always changing the project schedule, and this usually does not give the QC manager time to staff according to the contract, the QC manager can move the dual certified inspector from the pipe department to the paint department and keep him till the end of the project, thereby meeting the contract QC staffing requirements. Also, on small projects, a dual certified inspector can make more money. So keep this in mind and do not stop your education after you get your CWI.